As I've evolved, I really wanted to look at civil rights, equal rights, attorney, immigration, those types of things, because they're things that I deal with every day. And then I see that there's not equality and there's a lot of disparity in education. Ultimately, my plan is to graduate from law school and run for Congress. Because if you want to make real change, you have to put yourself in a position to make that change.
Hello and welcome to the Degrees of Success podcast. I'm your host, Frida Richards, and today we have an outstanding guest. She's an author, an entrepreneur, an educator, and a mentor. And she's also received her bachelor's, master's, and doctorate from University of Phoenix. Help me welcome Dr. Rose Lorenzo. So in doing your research, I recognized, I actually saw a LinkedIn post about you and the hackathon.
Oh, yes.
Because the kids were here on campus.
Yes.
And we were using it. And so I work for University of Phoenix as the podcast host, but also I do digital marketing. I'm the digital marketing campaign manager. And so I get to see and evaluate all the data from all of our like influencer assets and things. And UGC assets, and you were one of them. And when I was doing the research, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited I get to meet her. Because when I was watching the video, I thought, this is so cool, because I have a great passion and love for children.
Me too.
Oh,
me too. I do.
I could tell children's book and the hackathon.
Yeah. So, and I never thought, because I always said I wanted to be a lawyer, right? But I never thought I would be in the education realm with children, right? I thought I'll get my doctorate degree. Maybe I'll go work for University of Phoenix. Maybe I'll go teach a doctoral class, adults, right? Never children. But during the first year of residency at University of Phoenix, I met three amazing individuals. We all live in different states. And out of research, we were researching emotional intelligence and technology. Well, that first year class was really interesting because Dr. Debbie, Dr. Katie, and Neil, and myself, we sat next to each other and we were going to be on the same team for research. Well, there were 13 people in our class and it was only going to be one team of 4. And so another team decided to make a team of 4 and we couldn't be the team of 4. So I was like the odd man out, right? Because now it was like they were going to be on this team and this other team created a team of 4. And so I ended up being on somebody else's team. But I always think God has a plan because Debbie and Katie and Neil, they did this research and I was able to watch it from a business perspective while they did their presentation. And when they finished, I asked them, I said, have you considered this as a business? And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, this would be an amazing business. We should talk about this after class, right? And so we were leaving the next day. So I flew back to North Carolina and on the plane, I wrote a business plan and I emailed it to them. And I said, this is what I think we should do. And they're like, first of all, Dr. Debbie and Dr. Katie are both in education, right? Debbie teaches in Nevada and Neil, he's a business person out of Tampa. Neil was like, yeah, I think you're right. And they're like, I don't know. And I said, I think we would be a great partnership because you can teach the children and I can run the business and Neil can run the social media side because that's what he does. And they're like, well, if you think it'll work, I'm like, yeah, I think so. So that's how Hackathon Junior was created. Primarily because out of the research, we found that children who use a lot of technology live in a narcissistic bubble and they don't care about anything that's going on around them. They only care about what's in front of them. And so the world could be falling down. And as long as the screen is still going, they're happy. right? So they lack in social skills and emotional intelligence. They don't know how to get along with others. So the objective and mission of Hackathon Junior was not to teach coding, but to improve emotional intelligence by using technology as the platform.
To improve emotional intelligence using technology. So we already have them glued to the screen. We know that because they're glued in front of the screen, that they're lacking social skills and emotional intelligence. And now you're bringing these things together.
Because it's one computer for every 4 kids. So as a team, they have to learn to create an app for a phone that will solve a real world issue, social, environmental, or public safety, which means they have to learn to collaborate, communicate, research, design together, and then code that app and then present it as a team to a panel of judges. So what we've seen, because this is our 8th year for Hackathon Junior, and what we've seen is children who have a really low emotional intelligence, you can spot them immediately when they walk into the room because they don't have anything to do with being on a team with anybody. They want a computer. They want to sit in a corner under a desk. They don't want to socialize. Putting them together and them learning that working with others and communicating and building this app, it developed those social skills and the communication skills, improves emotional intelligence. You can see the change almost immediately, in these kids. And we have seen a lot of change in kids. I think we've served close to 2,000 kids in 8 years.
Wow. So tell me
across the United States.
Tell me what it looks like to be able to either add your child or friend to
It's
Hackathon
not
Junior.
virtual. The only time we did virtual was during COVID, because right before COVID, we had an initiative for 2020 to teach 2020 children in 2020. And we had so many things going on. We were going to have a golf tournament to raise the money we needed for all the computers that we were going to need. We had all of this. And then COVID came and all that crashed. And so we decided to go virtual, and we held virtual hackathons, which ended up being a weekend event, like Friday to Sunday. Our events in person are one day. They're an 8-hour day. They start at 8 o'clock in the morning and they end at 5:30 in the evening. And they get food and all kinds of stuff and coding and TED Talk and coaching by mentors that we bring in, which University of Phoenix has been amazing in helping us bring in tech mentors to come in and help the kids with their coding challenge. And so they get to learn to create an app prototype, and it could work and it maybe won't work, but it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to just identify what the problem is. Whether the problem is climate change, what do you think you need to do to fix that? And how would you want your users to fix that? And so we had a team who created this amazing app on how to measure your carbon footprint. And they created this algorithm that said, if you drive a certain type of car, it's this many points. If you live in this size of a house, it's this many points. The type of gas you use in your house, whether propane or regular gas, it's this many points. And it gave you a number that said, this is how you're affecting the environment, right? So you could change that, maybe make some changes to what your everyday living is. It was amazing. These kids are 9 to 13 years old. So they're young, they're 3rd grade to 8th grade. And so it's amazing to me what they can come up with in such a short amount of time. And that no one, we always say, Dr. Debbie and I always say that children are the best innovators because no one's ever told them that they can't do it. And so they're not jaded by, oh, that's not possible. And you don't have anybody telling them that you can't do it. In fact, we tell them that we want them to fail because we believe that failing is the first attempt in learning. And so there isn't anybody not even the brightest genius in the world that started something and got it right the first time. They failed, right? And then they said, okay, that didn't work. Let me try this. And then they failed again. And it could be thousands of times before they get it right. And so I think when we tell children about failure, they look at it as a negative thing opposed to as a positive thing, because if you're learning from it, that's great, because now you know you won't do that again. And now you're going to move forward. Just don't quit, And so, Hackathon is amazing. And we're hoping coming forward that we can bring it as an academy to Phoenix area. And so we've had a lot of parents reach out saying, how can we get our kids in this program outside of the one-day event, right? And so we're looking in that direction to try to bring it out into that area as an after-school program.
Well, I'm lucky enough to live in Phoenix.
Yeah, so I may be moving to Phoenix.
Oh my goodness. Well, that would be incredible. My son will be in the 3rd grade next year, so I'm just going to have to take advantage because sounds amazing.
It's amazing. We did the past 2 summers, we've done a summer camp in Charleston, South Carolina, which we did a 3-week camp, and then we did a 5-week camp of coding every day, and these kids learned all different types of coding robots, creating video games, creating animation, apps for the phones. And I think in the camp last year, the kids created something like 679 games.
Wow.
And so, and some of those games, once they're posted and they can go live on Bloxel, anybody in the world can play it. And so, you'd pull it up and it's like, look, you had 500 different people played your game last night. And they're like, what? It's like incredible that, and they could go home and tweak it and play some more and take it home and show their parents what they created. But it inspires that innovation, that creativity, that I can create anything because look what I did, and that's really what we're trying to do, hoping that kids will maybe want to go into tech, but there's so many jobs outside of being a coder in the tech industry that just giving them that ability, that, range that, hey, you can go into this. You don't necessarily need to be a coder, but there's other areas in tech that you could go to, and giving them exposure, primarily to kids who don't have exposure to these items. And so
let me ask you, you said that you can see a young student that doesn't have necessarily a high emotional intelligence score. Tell me what the importance of emotional intelligence is, and especially in technology, moving forward with this new future of ours. And tell me about a little bit more about emotional intelligence and just how it plays in our everyday life.
So emotional intelligence is really being able to see the other side of the coin, right? So when you say something to somebody, understanding how that might make them feel, and how being sensitive to things that we say to individuals that might hurt their feelings, and so a lot of what's happening with this generation, this newer generation, is because there's such a low EIQ score with these kids, they don't know how to socialize with somebody else. They can't empathize with what somebody might be going through. For example, somebody gets hurt and a kid with a low EIQ might go, that's all right. Where one with the higher EIQ might be like, are you okay? Can I help you with something? And help them up. The one with the lower EIQ might go, okay, and keep walking and not even help them up, right? And so, because they don't even understand what that feels like on the other side, they could say something really mean or harsh to somebody and not understand that they're really hurting somebody's feelings because they're so cold. It's like that lack of sensitivity, lack of empathy, and emotion. And and we have a lot of adults like that. And what I've found that most adults with the lower EIQ hide behind the word that it's okay. It's okay. And I'm like, it's not okay. Because if it was okay, you wouldn't be going, it's okay. But that doesn't matter. Right. And so those are words that people with a lower EIQ will say, it's okay. That doesn't matter. But they hold that emotion inside because they don't know how to express it. Right. And so when they deal with others, it's okay. And it doesn't matter. Right. When they hurt somebody's feelings, because it's what they're saying to themselves and they're doing to others. So when we get kids that have a lower social skill or lower EIQ, putting them on a team and making sure that they can communicate. And when they don't, there's always going to be someone there that will be the leader of the team, is working with them and getting them involved, right? It's not okay to just have them on a team and not have them involved, have them just being there. No, they need to participate. And once you get them in there, and we have these icebreakers with them where they learn to do the Pringles challenge, they have to make a standing ring with Pringles, a freestanding ring with Pringles in 6 minutes, right? So they have to learn to like stack them, so it stands straight up, and so when they're doing that as a team, and it's not easy, but once they figure it out, it's like, oh, you need a strong foundation in order to be able for the ring to stand at the top, right? It helps them break that, oh, I'm by myself. You're not on an island on your own. People are there to help you. You just have to be open to allow people to help you so that you can socialize yourself better. And a lot of this happened more, I think, when COVID and people were homeschooled and kids, literally the mental health of kids went down because they weren't designed to stay home all day by themselves, and trying to do school. That was really, really difficult for them. And then not having that outlet to be able to socialize with other people, especially younger kids who maybe didn't have phones. I think teenagers, it was, a whole different realm with teenagers, because you started getting all the cyberbully stuff happening, right? And, but the younger kids, I think it was really hard for them because they didn't have any friends. Their friends are the friends they see in class, and you can go outside if you live in a neighborhood. So what I find really fascinating about neighborhoods in America, when I was growing up, we were always outside. You go into a neighborhood and you know that there's kids there. You don't see any kids playing outside. Where are these kids? They're indoors on computers, on Nintendo Switches, on PS5s, on whatever technology they can be on, and it's become the new babysitter. Just go use your devices. But it's creating a really low EIQ, because being outside and playing with your friends develops that social skill and that emotional intelligence that you need to have empathy for someone who gets hurt or someone who bullies someone, and you stand up for them, but if you're not really seeing that on a day-to-day basis because you're indoors all the time, that's why we're seeing a lot of that. And they're having a lot of issues with that in schools, with these kids that have the lower EIQ.
So what would be your advice for a parent that recognizes, well, my child clearly has a low EIQ, but I do need to have them in front of the TV every now and again, or on their iPad, or whatever the case may be? What would be your advice for that parent?
I would say and definitely I'm not saying technology is bad, because I am in tech education, right? And so I want kids to be in technology, but I also want them to not only be in technology, right? So having them participate in other projects, in sports, in other things outside of technology, something that is not an individual sport, but a team sport. Team sports, track and field, tennis, things like that. They are the best for building character and emotional intelligence and social skills, confidence, right? They may not become a track star, but they become on a team that maybe wins a ribbon. If they're playing baseball, if they're playing soccer or football, outside of doing the tech stuff, gives them a better balance because they need that socialization even outside of school. I am a fan of extracurricular activity. I grew up running track and field from the time I was 10 years old. I ran track until I went to college. And
Whoa.
I ran
What did you run?
I was a sprinter. So I ran the 400 meter and I ran the 220 and I ran the relays.
Okay. I ran the 100 and the 200.
Yeah, not 100. I wasn't that kind of a sprinter, not that fast.
You got the longevity because you did the 400.
Yeah.
The 2 was a stretch for me.
Yeah. And back then, and I look at like the different, the times now, that's been, 40 something years already. But, the times that they have now are not that much faster than it was when I was running, which I think is really amazing. And my biggest mistake was that I didn't go to a university out of high school that had a track team. I went to Point Loma Nazarene College and they didn't have a track team. And I wasn't really thinking about track. I was just thinking about, okay, I want to go to law school. Right. And then I ended up getting married. And so all of that changed. God had a different plan. But had I gone with my partner in crime to USC, when she went to USC, we both would have ran track. We probably both would have made it to the Olympics because we were that fast.
Wow.
But it wasn't in my cards to do that.
It was not in your cards. And you know what? I bet there's a lot of children, if I'm not mistaken, I heard you say 2,000 in the last 8 years that are probably very grateful for the path that you took.
Yeah, I always think that, the path I took was the right path, and everything that we do makes us who we are today, regardless of whether it was good or bad. There's always a plan and we make, God has his plan and we sometimes go in a different direction, but we will always end up where we're supposed to be. It might take you longer to get there because you decided to go down the wrong road, but it takes us to where we need to be. And, I am so grateful for the University of Phoenix for giving me the opportunity and the support I got throughout my whole degree path. I had the best academic advisors there that just helped me all the way through, and they never let me give up. They always said, no, you could do it. And I was going to school and I was running my company and trying to, keep going. And my company kept growing. And then Lorenzo Financial grew. And then we started Hackathon Junior, and that became its own entity over here. And I've branched off Hackathon Junior to I2O Academy, which is an entrepreneur and STEAM academy with an apprenticeship program for high schoolers. And so that's what we're really working on, trying to get in different areas, because I truly believe that college is not for everybody right off the bat, right? But the generation of children that we have right now and what's going on in the education realm is that we have a lot of children who are failing, children who don't know how to read when they get to high school. They don't know how to do math when they get to high school. This is happening all across the United States. And so what's happening is that by the time they get to 10th grade and they're 16, they drop out. So I2O Academy came about kind of as a spinoff of Hackathon Junior. After I finished my doctoral degree, I wrote a book called Get It Done, which is a guide to entrepreneurship. And the idea of that was to teach that to students who want to become entrepreneurs, right? And so if you want to become an entrepreneur and you're in high school, but you don't really know how to do it and your parents aren't entrepreneurs, what do we do? You might have a great idea, but you may never act on that because you have a parent who's saying, who's going to fund that? How are you going to do that? And so you give up your dream of starting whatever it is that you want to start, and so I've had some eighth graders go, I really want to start a business, but I'm not sure how to do it. My parents don't know what I need to do. Can you help me? I'm like, yeah, I'm all for that, and so that's kind of how I2O Academy came about as an entrepreneur academy that then we merged in Hackathon Junior STEM component to teach a higher level of coding for people who maybe wanted to become programmers or start their own gaming company or start their own IT company. We're just setting them up for success as future leaders of the world, right? Because if we don't, we're just going to have all these young kids dropping out of school or not going to college or not really just kind of finding themselves lost. I think a lot of them feel lost and not sure what they want to do.
Right.
So giving them an arena in which they can explore what would be best for them.
Thank you for seeing the need, because to your point, there's many children and those that are growing up into being young adults that do feel stuck. Whether I hear it on social media or if I hear it from a friend or if I hear it from, some young 20s that I know myself, there is a sense of loss. We're never going to be able to purchase a home. We're never going to be able to, everything is more expensive and unattainable. It's not like 20 or 30 years ago. And there is a sense of like hopelessness. You guys are destroying our earth. And there's just, the more I listen to people like in their 20s or 18, 19, there does seem to be a lot of disparity. And so thank you for creating something where we could possibly get the youth back, get them excited about something, because
Yes.
technology is obviously the way moving forward.
So I did my study as a quantitative study, right? Because I am a statistician and I'm a numbers person. I don't really want to be out interviewing and looking for themes and all that's just not me. And so he kept telling me that this other professor that I could not do it as a quantitative study, it would have to be qualitative. And I'm like, no, I can do it this way. But for his class, I shifted it. I did some research on qualitative, did it this way. And when I got out of his class, I shifted it right back to what I was going to do. And that's how I finished it, because I was not going to allow someone to tell me how I could do my study. I already knew. And the biggest thing I think that I found when I was there is that a lot of my cohort of students that I was with, a lot dropped out. And primary reason is they don't know what they want to study. They don't know what the problem is. And they get someone that along the way tells them that their problem is not a problem and they don't know how to defend that it is. Right. And so a lot of my classmates in third year dropped out. And I'm like, how are you dropping out at the very end? I was told I had to start over. No, tell them no, and they just get frustrated, but the one thing I have to say about the UOP doctoral program is probably the best program design, because other universities, they give you all the classes and then you have to go off on your own and write your dissertation. It is really hard to write your lit review with no support, right? I mean, it's like you're looking at 40 pages of literature review, thousands of articles and books that you got to read to find what is going to fit in there, and without anyone telling you, hey, maybe you're going in the wrong direction here, or maybe you need to look at this.
Dr. Rose, we appreciate you. University of Phoenix is so proud to have you as an alum. Thank you for joining us here on the Degrees of Success podcast. And somehow that brings us to the end, which is so hard to say because I know there's so much more knowledge. So there may need to be a part 2 with Dr. Rose, but thank you so much for joining us and for making it here to the end of this Degrees of Success podcast episode. I'm your host, Frida Richards, reminding you that your next chapter just might be the best one yet. See you soon.